Some feedback on your draft portfolio. So you've talked about equine obesity as your topic. You've started off by explaining why you picked the topic and you've gone on to review it. I suppose the two main things I'm going to say to you are you need to remember you're writing for other vet nurses, you're not writing for horse owners. You're advising other vet nurses on what information they need to help horse owners manage obese animals. So that's important. And then the other thing to bear in mind is that you need to give quite specific advice. A lot of what you're including here is quite general. I'll give you some examples as we go down through it. But you need to be very specific when it comes to dietary advice. It's not much good saying feed them less. You need to give the people specific information to allow them to work out how much to give the animal. Okay. So you've started off by explaining that obesity is an increasingly prevalent problem in the horse population. Would be no harm if you can get some stats on Irish horses. That would be helpful. They may not be available. If not, UK is probably the most equivalent, but it is important to, put in what country the data you're coming from it was collected in. That's helpful. Okay. You do need to as well remember at the start to summarise why you picked the topic. If you look at the marking scheme, there'll be more marks going for that. So you have to put in a piece at the start explaining why you picked the topic for yourself, as well as explaining its relevance to vet nursing. So remember to look at the marking scheme as you go to make sure you're kind of hitting all the boxes. In relation to some of your sentence structure, if you look at this paragraph here, you've started off by explaining obesity arises when we've increased palatable food intake along with reduced activity. It's a problem because they can get other conditions. Then you've said this can cause exercise intolerance in the horse, which prevents them from losing the excess weight and puts them under unnecessary suffering. This can become debilitating the animal and become potential life-threatening condition. So I'm not sure here, this, and this. Are you referring to laminitis or obesity? It's really important that your sentence structure is really clear. This second paragraph, or the second line, reads like laminitis, but I can't tell from the way you've written the paragraph. So just read back over and check that your meaning is clear. Okay. I've shortened your sentences in places as well. Like, keep it simple. If a sentence is getting a bit long, just don't be afraid to shorten it down and avoid complicating your writing. Likewise, this is quite a long sentence here. If you read it out loud, these modernised techniques have led to an increase in equine obesity as horses did not evolve eating bright green grass all year round, and therefore the consumed summer graze is not burnt off during the winter period, as they are fed high quality grazing also during winter. That doesn't really make sense and it's hard to follow, so maybe go back and break it up into shorter sentences and try and be specific as to exactly what you mean. Okay. If you want to put in a quotation, that's fine, but then you must put in your citation and page number for that quotation, otherwise you're plagiarising Tanya Cubitt's work. So keep referring back to your DKIT Guide to Harvard reference and make sure your work is going to be properly referenced and cited to avoid plagiarism issues, because that's obviously something we want to not run into. And then you've talked about the fact that horse owners may not appreciate that their horse is overweight, and they may not realise that the health problems that can arise. So we have pointed out that there is a responsibility for the veterinary profession there to try and help clients in this regard. Okay. You're using concurrent a lot. I'm not sure if you're clear on what it means. Concurrent refers to two things that happen at the same time, which is not the context you're using it in here. So maybe just review that and figure out what exactly it is you're trying to say. I'm not sure, but I don't think concurrent is the right word there. Okay. So if I couldn't follow it, I've just put a note there that I wasn't sure what you were trying to say. Okay. Then you're moving on from the fact that horse owners might know what to do to management factors. So I think you should put some headings in here. Your heading should tell the reader what to expect in each section. So it's important, A, you have headings, and B, that they kind of tell the reader what they're currently going to be finding out about and how it relates to what came before and what comes after. So I think go back and look at your headings and make sure they're laying out the sequence of the article nice and clearly. Okay. So you've moved on to talk about management factors and the importance of it. Just try and avoid repeating yourself a bit. You've talked about the fact that the overweight animal faces health problems, so there's no need to say that again. Just keep each point once. Right, prevention then. Now again, you're starting to switch here from talking to vet nurses to talking to horse owners. Remember, you're talking to vet nurses, so make sure that your sentences are structured in such a way to make it clear who your target audience is. Right. So moving on to talk about what you should feed the horse, it's really important that you're very specific in terms of what you're talking about. You probably could not drop out this section on water and the various basic proteins and fats and carbohydrates. It's not really adding anything to the work, and it's something a vet nurse would be familiar with, whereas they won't be familiar with how to actually feed an overweight horse to get them to lose weight in a safe manner. So I think you could probably leave out this whole section here from nutritional management down below this table, and as far as here, and that will give free up words then to talk about how to actually feed the horse, which you haven't really addressed. This is a useful study, but you should indicate what country it occurred in, just to give clarity. And you've talked about, you're kind of repeating yourself here. I was expecting this section to be about how the body condition score and what we want horses to be on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 9 or whatever. But again, you're kind of going back and saying again like that, you know, it's our job to ensure owners actually do this, and they might not take it on board. Right, then you've talked about condition scoring. Now, this is not your image. You've taken it from another piece of work, so you must put in a caption and a figure number, and in your caption citation you must indicate where you got the work from, so whose work this is. It's obviously Kentucky Equine Research. The other thing is I can't actually read it easily. It's a bit small, so I'd suggest take these out and replace them with your own table. So retype your own table. You don't need to put the images in, because that's obviously, unless you want to draw them yourself. I suggest just retype the written description in your own table as to what the various stages are. That way you'll avoid the plagiarism problem you're currently facing, and I'll also be able to read it, because this is quite hard to read. The image resolution's a bit slow. Right, this whole section here is just aimed at horse owners. So again, I'd say just take that out. Remember, you're writing for other vet nurses, and then what your vet nurse does need to know is what exactly is it they should be doing. So you've talked here about information that the AAP have, but you haven't said what that actually is. You've mentioned weight tapes. There's debate over how useful they are, so if you're recommending people use them, you may expand on them as to how to use them properly and how valuable they are. You haven't actually said what to feed the horse yet, so here we are, we're down at the bottom of page 12, we're only starting to mention it now. And you've talked about exercise, but you've said the exercise program should be suitable, it should be increased gradually. How much to actually exercise the horse? Okay, I want to know, should I ride my horse for 5 minutes a day, or 10 minutes a day, or 20 minutes a week, or 10 hours a week? I'm no wiser, so it's important that you give other vet nurses specific guidelines for exercise, otherwise they can't pass them on to clients. Then again, with your nutritional advice, it's very vague. You're telling me feed the horse a high quality fibre diet, which is low in energy, such as what? So what am I actually meant to feed the horse, and how much should I feed him? How will I know how much to give him to get him to lose weight? So I think this is really important. You said it should be balanced, it should satisfy the horse's needs, you should restrict their grazing, but again, there's no actual practical advice here I can go home and actually implement with an animal. So it's important that you review this section and tell the reader, this is what you need to feed the horse, this is how much, this is for how long, this is how you know it's working, this is how you work out what percentage of the body weight in dry matter intake the animal's taking a day. There's going to have to be maths in here. So I think you need to totally rewrite this section. As it is currently, it's too vague to reach a pass, and it wouldn't be helpful to a vet nurse who's trying to advise horse owners. You might need to go back to the literature to get more specific information on this. Have a look in the Equine Hospital Manual. It does have a section on the nutritional requirements of hospitalised horses. So at least it'll give you information of how to work out the basic intakes. And the other thing is, if we just suddenly fast horses, we risk killing them with hyperlipemia. So that's probably something you need to address as well. You don't have to go into detail on it, but it's important to flag it to veterinary professionals as a potentially fatal complication of uncontrolled weight loss or restricted food intake, and something we want to avoid. So yeah, as I say, there's lots of question marks here. How much, how long, how often, what for. So I think you have to go back and rework this section to actually put in practical advice for the horse owning public to be able to get from their veterinary professionals. At the moment, you're kind of missing out on that step. Because as you said, it's a very common problem. It's important that we address it. So it's really important we equip vet nurses with the information they need to allow them to actually do that. Okay. And the other thing is, with your conclusion, should be summing up what's gone before. You shouldn't be putting new information into the conclusion. So, for example, here you've mentioned soaking the hay to reduce the caloric intake. That shouldn't be something that appears for the first time in your conclusion. Okay. You can probably shorten it a bit as well by taking out some of that stuff I mentioned. Then in relation to your references, just looking at them, I've highlighted in yellow the ones that aren't evidence-based or they're aimed at horse owners and aren't good quality scientific resources. You can see there's quite a lot of them. Roughly, maybe slightly more than half your references at the moment I wouldn't consider to be good quality references. So I think you need to go back and do some more research, find some more veterinary specific nutritional recommendations for overweight horses, and then use those to rewrite your portfolio and include that really practical advice that's going to be helpful to your colleagues in practice. Okay, so a bit more work to do with Manuela to get it up to a pass mark, but keep it up, and if you have any problems, come back to me and I'll give you a hand if you're stuck finding references, for example. Thanks very much.